Do you know why Disney is failing? If you had to wager a guess, you'd probably say something along the lines of consistent box office flops, excessive live-action remakes that are nostalgic cash grabs that no one asked for, and of course there's the tried and true, ham-fisted political and social messaging being jammed into every film without nuance. If you guessed any of those, you'd be wrong. It's you, the fans. Welcome back to Words of Paradise. I'm your host, Leon Idle, and that's right, an unnamed Disney exec has decided to blanket blame all fans as the reason for Disney's woes. So let's get into this article from Fandom Wire, because it truly is a masterpiece. But before we do, hit that subscribe button. I'm a nerdy news channel. I cover nerdy news every day, and in a time when free speech is at an all-time low, channels like mine and of course my channel are the only way to get things back to the way they were before. So get this, executive blamed the fans as the real reason behind the Marvels and Star Wars downfall. Disney boss believes fans are the culprit to the failures of the Marvels and Star Wars. You couldn't blame yourselves. You couldn't come out and say, hey, we've been screwing up and not giving the audiences what they wanted. I know that the whole phrase is the customer is always right, but not this time. We're the House of Mouse, the House of Mouseschwitz. We know better than you. Disney has been in turmoil in recent years after flop films following another box office bomb continues to be the trend. Whether these be the animated movies or live action franchises such as Marvel Studios and Star Wars, nothing has been exempt from failure. And you know what? I gotta say, I'm glad that the media, the mainstream media, is actually picking up on this and actually reporting on it, because it wasn't so long ago that it was just deny. Every single time a Disney movie would come out, it would bomb. We would all, of course, acknowledge that it was a bomb. We would lay out the mathematics of how it was a bomb, and they would say, no, you're racist, sexist, bigoted trolls, and what you say doesn't count, doesn't matter. The movies were a success. All of a sudden, lately, we've been starting to see a change of tune, mainly because once you got things like the Marvels come out, there is just no way to deny the catastrophic failure of these films when budgets are announced and when you see the actual take-home of what was coming in at the theater. So all of a sudden, the media has realized we're going to have to start being at least somewhat honest if we want to be taken seriously as journalists with some journalistic integrity here. Fans and critics have been very expressive about what they hated in these projects, and in most cases, it's either the story was really bad, or the executive was lame, or they're just plainly uninterested in the narrative. And you know what? Pretty fair to me. Is that not what we've all been saying in most cases? Like, we do complain about how bad the stories are. We do say that the execution was awful in many of these projects, or we're just uninterested in the narrative. Who gave a damn about the storyline for Wish? What was the storyline for Wish? Could you tell me that? Could anyone tell you that leading up to the film? Was there even marketing for that film? Yeah, people are uninterested because Disney has burned goodwill amongst 99%, obviously not 99%, but the vast majority of the viewing audience. If they hadn't burned the vast majority of the viewing audience, they would still be making profits. Not as much profits, because there still would be individuals that of course had left Disney, but they would still be making profit if they had the majority on their side. The fact that they have had, what is it, like 10 flops in a row now at this point, clearly goes to show the majority are against them, not the minority that are still going to play ball and defend Disney and go see every single release to own the chuds or whatever their reasoning is. Disney executive blames fans for company's box office bombs. Puck News' Matt Baloney, I love that last name, Baloney, as someone who's on the carnivore diet, that just speaks to me, shared his conversation with an unnamed Disney head and revealed that he points his fingers at the audience on the disastrous fate of Brie Larson's The Marvels and Daisy Ridley's Star Wars. And if you could do that, you could blame the audience for these very obviously female-led, girl boss-driven movies. But that doesn't account for all the other bombs you've had, all the Marvel movies that have bombed that have had male leads. Wish, again, which I just brought up, which, yeah, that was a female lead, but let's be real, that was supposedly a children's movie, a family-friendly movie. That doesn't account for Lightyear, which was one of the most beloved characters of anyone in our age group's franchise leads of all time. Like Buzz Lightyear, you grew up with Woody and Buzz. You knew Woody and Buzz. That should have at least been great for people my age who, of course, now have kids to also take their kids to. So yeah, go ahead and throw out the Marvels and Star Wars. Well, if I recall, Solo, a Star Wars story, was the first Star Wars movie to bomb. That one didn't even star a female lead. So of course, when they're going to say these words and throw out these titles, they're using it as a cover for what's really going on. Because at this point, it's not a gendered issue. It's not a sexism issue. People aren't bigots and just choosing not to go to the movies because vaginas. No, they can see through Disney, and this exec can spin it any way he wants to try and look good to the media, and probably even more so, look good to their shareholders. Hey, blame the sexist fans. Hey, we're probably going to try and make you money, but we can't do it with all the raging bigoting out there. But yeah, the rest of the people, the real world, sees through the facade. Everyone says it's the movie's stupid, which is an easy thing for people to say. Well, it's easy for people to say when it is true. More appealing movies are a great way to jump to the political issues, but more and more our audience, or the segment of the audience that has been politicized, equate the perceived messaging in this film as a quality issue. Well, it kind of is a quality issue because there was a time where you could make stories like Pocahontas, for example, that had a very obvious message, but there was nuance and subtlety to it. Now, again, when it comes to something like Pocahontas or The Hunchback of Notre Dame or even something like 101 Dalmatians, you would be a fool to say there was never any message in those movies. They were just trying to give good stories. No. There are absolutely social and moral messages to those movies. The subtlety and how well it was done, how well written it was, with the care for the script and the intelligence they clearly showed they understood the audience had, those are what make it different. So when he says it's all about the segment of the audience that's been politicized, you must mean the vast majority. So are you calling the vast majority of your audience right-wing bigots? At that point, you would be admitting that, oh, it's almost all of America that's sexist and racist and bigoted. Why were people showing up to your movies 5 years ago if all of America was sexist and racist and bigoted? Did America suddenly become overnight just more radicalized? Did all the white people just collectively decide, you know what, we're gonna be racist now because fuck the House of Mauschwitz? That's the narrative that you're trying to sell when you make a statement like this. It's actually not all about the politics, believe it or not. Most Americans don't follow politics particularly heavily. In fact, only about 10% of Americans are politically well informed. But most people can smell and spot bullshit when they smell it and see it. It isn't that hard. So when you've got a company like Disney that goes out of their way to project their political beliefs or their social beliefs into everything in a way that is not subtle or nuanced like we used to see in those classic films, all of a sudden you're going to have yourself a problem. Kids are smarter than you give them kids are smarter than you give them credit for as well. They're going to pick up on this sort of stuff. They're going to watch Lion King from 1994 and they're going to enjoy it more than something like Disney's Wish because it's an objectively better film. Kids aren't dumb. They're going to pick up on something being better, even if they're not entirely sure what the reasoning is. Equate the perceived messaging in a film as a quality issue, which we already covered. Yes, it is a quality issue, because if you want to go ahead and put your subtlety and put your nuance in it, the quality is immediately going to go up, because you can get a discussion going beyond, look at him, he's a racist, meh. The executive continued to blame the fans for wishing for better films. Interesting, the Disney boss also remarked that people would often mask their preference in movies with comments claiming how terrible the plot was when in fact there's a hidden discriminatory agenda. Now this is the sort of stuff that the media usually does. We see stuff like this from Kotaku, from the Mary Sue, from IGN. They will make statements like, oh, the live-action Cowboy Bebop was actually A-OK, but all those bigoted, misogynistic fans couldn't stand that they desexified Faye Valentine, so instead they review-bombed the whole thing. They claimed the whole product is bad, and really that's a front for them hating this one issue with the show, when, no, there's nothing to do with it. I mean, yeah, you could say there's small minorities, but I don't even like that argument because you can use that argument for anything. There's always going to be a small minority or a little subset of people that believe something stupid. So it has nothing to do with a hidden discriminatory agenda. The vast majority of people, they claim about how terrible a plot is, break down in their reviews on YouTube, for example, how terrible the plot is, or on Rotten Tomatoes, or wherever it is they go to do so. And you can tell they're real people because they write out 5 paragraphs of why a movie works or doesn't work, as opposed to your bought and paid for bots that just leave good movie with 5 stars, which we see all the time, not just from Disney, but for a myriad of products. But it gets even worse. The Disney exec doubles down and says even more egregious tomfoolery. They won't say they find female empowerment distasteful in the Marvels or Star Wars, the latest trilogy starring Daisy Ridley. Now you're just flat out lying. Because we do say that. When it's done in an awful manner, like it was in the Marvels or like it was in Star Wars, we openly say we don't like the female empowerment movement because you're not doing it well. If you do it well, people will show up and enjoy it. Wonder Woman made a killing. Barbie also made a killing, and yes, while Barbie might be a bad example because you did have an incredibly annoying dialogue between the left and the right about whether the movie was woke or not, I don't think that really matters. The fact of the matter is, people showed up, the movie made bank. So it's obviously not just a male problem. Women aren't showing up to see your movies either because, again, you would be seeing profits. It's not just a straight white guy sort of thing. Again, we actually do talk about how we don't like the female empowerment. We're not trying to hide it. because you're not doing it well. You're doing it to push an agenda, to push a message, instead of just letting the characters be naturally badass females, which no one would have a problem with, and we've never had a problem with. If people had a problem with naturally badass females, then Xena wouldn't have ran for several seasons and be looked at as one of the greatest shows of the 90s. But they will say they don't like those movies because they are bad. So make better movies becomes code for make movies that conform to regressive gender stereotypes or put men front and center in the narrative. My man, if these are regressive gender stereotypes, then why is that what everyone is clamoring for? Are you saying that, oh, everyone wants to return to a time when things were worse? Why are things like The Reacher or Terminal List killing it on Amazon? Or what about The Boy and the Heron or any other Ghibli film? Almost every single Ghibli film has an incredibly left-leaning political message. The difference is the execution. But you want to just pretend that doesn't exist. You want to pretend that people are so up in arms about political and propaganda and these sorts of like race baiting or gender baiting issues that you completely lie about what it is that people are asking for. It shouldn't be hard to make a movie that folks get behind. We do see it from time to time. When something comes out like Dune 2, we're about to get results. We're going to find out, hey, when the reviews drop, Dune 2 is either going to be loved, hated, maybe it's going to be mixed, but all in all, I guarantee you're not going to see any, you're not going to see very much, I didn't like Dune 2 because women were in it. Like, again, yeah, you small subsets, but nobody talks about the extremes on either side because they're just that. They're extremes. The vast majority of people are going to say, I liked Dune 2 because it followed the book, or I didn't like Dune 2 because it didn't follow the book. Or if they haven't read the book, they're going to say, I liked Dune 2 because the set design was gorgeous and the special effects blew my mind. Or I didn't like Dune 2 because the special effects weren't as good as in the previous one and the acting, for whatever reason, took a downturn. These are normal things that people complain about, and they don't just use them as a crutch or as a guise to really talk about how much they hate women. We are very open when we don't like something because of perceived feminist girl boss propaganda, so you can't act like we're trying to hide that. It doesn't help that Disney accuses its audience of the company's failure. CEO Bob Iger even admitted via Bloomberg that he is overwhelmed and exhausted with all the problems he's facing, including unimpressive box office results and cultural backlashes. Well, I don't know. I personally wouldn't, cry too hard over the man that makes like $44 million a year or something like that by running the House of Mauschwitz, so don't feel too bad for the guy. What does it mean when Disney's streamer, Disney Plus, is reportedly losing subscribers and millions of dollars? It means their contents are no longer worth watching. Fans are consumers, so it's absolutely not their fault if they reject unappetizing sustenance. Well said. I couldn't have said it better myself. It goes back to that old adage, once again, that customer is always right. If you're trying to give us a product, you need to give us a product that has something of value to it. Something that we can look at and say, in these tough economic times, because Joe Biden has absolutely destroyed our economy, I would like to make the entertainment actually worth the dollar I'm about to spend on it, which is why I'm going to be incredibly happy, once again, to spend my money on Dune 2, because I think I will get value out of that. I thought I would get value out of Argyle. I was incredibly wrong. I rolled the dice, they came up snake eyes. What you gonna do? You can't win them all. But you know what? Maybe Disney could use this as a time to learn and acknowledge we are the ones, Disney, we made the mistake. Let us fix it. But they're not going to do that. They would rather blame the fans. And like I said, at this point, they're not just blaming the angry, sexist, bigot trolls. They're blaming all of you, because how could they be down across the board if it was just a small minority of online trolls? There's still hope for Disney to recover from the profit loss incurred by the Marvels and Star Wars. No, there's not. Marvel Studios' Deadpool and Wolverine proves to be a popular choice among fans. Deadpool and Wolverine, whether it's good or not, whether it makes a bunch of money or not, is not going to make up for over, I don't even remember how much it was in box office losses. I believe it's well over $1 billion at this point in just box office losses alone. One movie is not going to save that. Disney could resolve this issue without blaming anyone but themselves. You're exactly right, Fandom Wire. I'm liking you more and more by the moment. Over the past decade, their projects were mostly unoriginal remakes or reboots, sequels, or spin-offs to franchises that didn't even ask for it, and overpriced budgets for films that no one is invested in. Who is writing for Fandom Wire? Is it me? Is it Hypno? Is it Dragon Slayer? Is it Ryan Cannell? It's almost like they're saying the exact same thing that we have all been saying since like 2016. I love seeing the media do stuff like this, because anyone that knows Fandom Wire, they're not an inherently anti-woke outlet. In fact, quite frankly, a lot of the time, they say some ridiculous woke stuff. But this is what I mean. The times are changing. The media's gotta change with it. I gotta give credit where it's due, even if it is, shallow or not in good faith. At least it's being said and is being brought up in conversations, being, said at the table. The overwhelming political agenda and woke culture found in newer projects are certainly what makes a potentially great movie less compelling. If the higher-ups only listen to the pulse of the crowd, they will not be complaining about this in the first place. In any case, the Marvel and Star Wars are streaming on Disney+. I cannot believe they said to listen to the pulse of the crowd, because you want to know what that means? Even Fandom Wire, not just Disney, even Fandom Wire is acknowledging this is how the majority feels. And I know I keep harping on that majority aspect, but that's because that's the most important part. For years upon years, they've been trying to sell us on this absolute lie that, oh, this is a small minority of vocal trolls. Well, now even the media is saying, no, this is most people. Disney, do something about it. We would like to continue working with you. They don't even care about losing their access anymore. That's amazing, because where's that access gotten them? Nothing. It's not like Disney's got the money to give them all these goodie bags and invite them to these red carpet events that no one's showing up to because people don't care about the Disney product. So at this point, the media's got nothing to lose by actually being honest about Disney. It's incredible to see, but I wish we had seen it a whole lot sooner. Maybe people like myself or Hypno or so many others in the sphere would have been taken a bit more seriously instead of being called racist, bigoted trolls when we never have been from the beginning. But those are just my opinions. Let me know yours in the comments down below, or let me know on X, where you can find me at Bolt the Word. And please do subscribe. I'm a nerdy news channel. I cover nerdy news every day. Not always about, Disney or anything to that effect, but anime, movies, music, Magic the Gathering. Check me out on Instagram at wordsofparadise_Leon. It's all here in the nerdosphere. This has been Words of Paradise.